The following talk was given at the Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City, California. Please visit our website at audiodharma.org.
So this is the second talk on moha, usually translated as delusion. And today I'll talk a little bit more specifically what the Buddhist understanding of it is. So moha, M-O-H-A, is considered to be one of the three roots or three origins for everything that human beings do that's unwholesome, unhelpful, harmful. And in the tradition of early Buddhism, this moha is said to be present in every unethical act that someone does, every unwholesome act that someone does. And what unwholesome implies here is that it's unwholesome for the person who does it, and it's unhelpful or unwholesome for the person who might be the recipient of the act. So if we're doing something which is not healthy for ourselves, psychologically, heartfully, then there's some degree of delusion in that action, in that act of speech, or in that act of the body. And this word moha, delusion, is related then to a lot of other kind of cluster of concepts or mental activities that are related, and maybe the biggest one in Buddhism is ignorance. But ignorance that's not, you don't know something, you didn't, read enough books to learn things, but rather it's more like an ignoring. It's a little bit more volitional. It's choosing, almost like choosing not to know, or allowing the conditions to be present of delusion that interferes with knowing. It's related also to bewilderment, to confusion, and to living in the world not quite understanding what's happening and being bewildered. And it's also related to the idea of I forgot what I was going to say. Of foolishness, the kind of the kind of one of the most common ways in which the Buddha talks about someone who is mature spiritually. He talks about them as being wise, and those who are immature are foolish. And that's that divide. It's not the divide between saint and sinner, but rather the divide between the foolish and the wise. And some people might feel it's unfortunate to make this distinction, but the difference maybe between a sinner and a fool is sinners in the kind of way it's often used in the West. There's no redemption. There's no, the person. That's what a person is. But when you're a fool, it's possible to become wise. Foolishness is a temporary phenomena. And partly what we're doing is becoming wise, is overcoming delusion. Now the word delusion in English and in moha in Pali implies that the mind is creating ideas that are not based on reality. So either we have projected some false ideas, some fantasies onto how things are, or we just live in a world of fantasy that has no connection to the world around us. And so it's something the mind is doing, and in terms of thoughts, ideas, maybe some degree of feelings are involved in contributing to this world of delusion. And one of the, I think, very useful reference points for understanding this is the psychological word or projection. That we have ideas, we have bias, we have prejudice that belong to the world of ideas, sometimes very intimately connected to feelings and motivations. And these bias and prejudice that we have, preferences that we have, are projections that we put on top of our experience. And and there's a whole slew of these ways in which the mind is actively involved in obscuring what's actually happening in the moment, because it's created an idea of what's happening that interferes with the direct experience. And socially, this is very painful when we see people through the stereotype. We see people through bias or prejudice, and sometimes we see ourselves through bias and prejudice. These ideas the mind forms, and then they're projected on others, on ourselves, on the world, obscuring our ability to see clearly. And this I understand why ignorance is not just not knowing, but is an ignoring that happens when we have these projections, when we're not allowing yourself to see deeply what's really going on. Now, in the tradition, there's a few things which are really central to the projections we have. One of them is that we project the hope of happiness onto things that don't really produce happiness. Like if we're trying to make ourselves happy, sometimes even safe, with unwholesome activities, with lying and stealing and cheating and or with being caught up in greed or ill will, then we think somehow our well-being is there to be found in engaging in unwholesome activity. And that's a kind of delusion, because unwholesome activity is always harming ourselves. And so to end that projection, then that allows us to see, actually, this is not happiness producing. I projected this hope for happiness into that activity, that it was going to do something for me. And so the same thing, the idea of projecting, and if we can, part of wisdom is to see the difference between what's wholesome and unwholesome, what's harmful and what's not harmful, and to become finely attuned to this, so we really kind of begin living in the world of what is beneficial, both for ourselves and for others. The other important idea of projection is the idea of we project a kind of permanence in things which are not permanent. And it might be a permanence just we have for the few minutes that it's there. We behave kind of unconsciously, perhaps, as if this is forever. It's always going to be a hot day. It's always going to be, this way or that way. And I remember that there was a brief period of time when I was, I think, about 20, where I had a wonderful summer. And in the middle of this wonderful summer, I said to myself, I'll never be depressed again. This was a delusion of permanence that came back and kind of bit me, because that fall, right after that wonderful summer, I was more depressed than I'd ever been. And then I had the thought, I'm going to be depressed forever. That was the attitude I had. I didn't say those words, but the weight of it all, this weight of permanence, this is how it is. And it can be a projection, and to live under the weight of that projection, it causes a lot of suffering, and it obscures that projection of permanence or constancy, obscures how shifting and changing our experience is. And there's a whole different way of being in the world when we see the inconstancy of it, the changing, shifting nature, and we find how to let go and find our peace with it. There's also the projection of identity. We all have, some kind of identity, gender or nationality or all kinds of things. But there's something about the act of projecting it on, even though maybe nominally it's accurate, but the act of projecting it and holding onto it and seeing through the lens of it can create a sense of solid self, a permanent self, a constant kind of ideation of who we are and what we're caught up in. And this is and so much of what we think of myself, my identity, is a projection, or we're acting through a projection in relationship to it. And so that's a kind of delusion that obscures how, in some very profound way, we are always more dynamic, more complicated, more fluid, more changeable, more than any projection we have on ourselves. That in fact that these projections obscure some deeper capacity for awareness and aliveness and freedom, which is always going to be here. So delusion, as moha, as being an activity of the mind, it's not a passive ignorance, but it's the creation of ideas which are not accurate, and then projecting that onto the world, or wearing them as filters on our eyes. So when we see the world through those interpretations, through those ideas. And it's a wonderful thing to take those filters off. It's a wonderful thing to let go of those projections. The cost of living this world of projections, of delusion, is a lot of stress. There's a lot of tension that comes along with it. And to live without projections, without these mind creations that we see through, this assumptions, beliefs, prejudice, bias, allows the mind to be much more relaxed and at ease, and to come to that place of ease and peace that not only is it good, just peaceful and easeful for the mind itself, but it allows for to see with the absence of delusion, the absence of moha, and how to get to that and how to practice with delusion and come to the other side is the topic for tomorrow. So, thank you, and you might, these next 24 hours, see if you can become a little bit more attuned or notice how ideas surface in the mind, and then those ideas become the means by which, or the filter through which, we then look and understand what's happening. And the key of this is to see it arise, see the beginning of something. Then it's easier to see it as a creation of the mind, and catch it as a kind of delusion. So, thank you very much.